Hey everybody, and welcome to Sell Yeah, the 8-Fig podcast segment where we feature interviews with our valued partners and sometimes seller customers to spread the good word about what they're doing to bring value to the e-commerce space and make for a better ecosystem for us all. I am your host as always, Sam Bell. I am the Partnership Marketing Manager with 8-Fig, and I appreciate you tuning in to hear more about our esteemed partners. Before we begin, we just have one request. If you're enjoying the podcast and you like listening to it and you think others would get something out of it, feel free to like, follow, and share and review it and do all of that on wherever you listen so that we can bring more people to the 8-Fig podcast and hear more about our partners. All right, well, let's get started. We have a really awesome guest. I'm looking forward to this one. It's someone that I'm really excited about, Jonny Ferrentino, the marketing director at William Murray Golf brand. Thanks so much for joining, Jonny. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Let's get into it. I'll give a quick intro of Jonny, and then I'm sure we're gonna hear the rest from him. So, Jonny Ferrentino is a seasoned marketing professional with over a decade of experience, and he currently serves as the marketing director at William Murray Golf, which, if you don't know, is a really fun and high-quality golf apparel. I'm actually sporting some today. It's one of my favorite pullovers. It's a beautiful product. I love it. They're a really high-quality brand that's inspired by the personality and comedy of Bill Murray, which is really fun. He's an avid golfer as well. Go check out some of his videos. They're hilarious. But anyway, demonstrating a proven track record of success, Jonny has excelled in optimizing user website experiences, providing e-commerce insights, and managing diverse teams. His leadership role at Stitcher Ads, Lamarck Media, and other prominent companies showcase his proficiency in overseeing budgets, developing marketing strategies, and in contributing to the growth of various portfolios. Outside of work, Jonny enjoys experiencing live music, as do I, it's great, hiking, travel, and both ball and disc golf, which makes a lot of sense. But it's quite the resume, Jonny. We're really excited to have you on.
No, I really appreciate it. It's it'll be fun just kind of talk about marketing as a whole and kind of everything that we have going on.
Yeah, totally. We're looking forward to it. I know we have a lot of golfers in the audience as well, so this will be a good one. I think a good way to kind of kick it off, start talking about the brand a little bit, is just kind of maybe a little bit of the story behind it and kind of and all that, and how the personality has influenced your marketing strategies and kind of how you approach it in the overall golf apparel landscape.
Yeah, so William Murray Golf officially started in 2017. It originally in kind of 2016, it was incubated underneath the Chive. They had kind of a agreement with Bill Murray and the family, and kind of from there, like you mentioned before, his love of golf, it just kind of seemed like a natural fit. And so we kind of did one season under them in 2016, and then 2017 kind of broke off as its own separate company, just kind of as the opportunity was really there. So it's been kind of really fun to kind of watch them grow. I actually started working with William Murray Golf from an agency capacity in 2018. So kind of been around with them kind of since the start. I joined full-time with them a little less than 2 years ago at this point. So it's been kind of fun to be on both sides of like the kind of watching them grow from, I remember when it was a 3-person company and now it's 21 people in an office downtown. So it's been fun to kind of watch them grow and kind of change over time, but still kind of with the core product being the same of kind of really those button-down polos. And so that's kind of where it really kind of all began.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And you said you're based in Austin, correct?
Yeah, we are founded and based in Austin. We have an office on East 6, so it's very much, we've always been kind of on the east side of Austin since we started. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think we haven't done the best job of planting our flag of like, we're an Austin-based company, but really looking to kind of make sure people know that as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you do a lot of the interactions with the golf community in Austin specifically for the brand?
Yeah, we definitely do some stuff with the golf community. We have partnerships with some high schools in the area, things like that. We're also participants in different leagues at like Butler Pitch and Putt, things like that, to kind of stay active in the community. And a couple weeks ago, or probably at this point, it was a little more than a month or two ago, there was the Eastside Mini Open, which is in case you don't know, they do a bunch of different bars in the area put on a putt-putt kind of tournament, if you will, on the weekend. And so we partnered up with Zilker Brewing and also Waterloo in the area, just kind of put together a little hole for that. So, just trying to stay active in the community where we can.
Absolutely. That's something we're trying to do as well. So community events are huge. And that's awesome. I had no idea there was a putt-putt tournament that kind of goes on at the bars.
I think this was the 5th year of it. It's the East Side Mini Open is what they call it.
The East Side Mini Open. I'm going to have to remember that. But that's pretty awesome. It makes sense. Yeah, Austin's a huge golf community. And I guess it also makes sense, from the Chive that, they're also based here. So that's really cool. That's a good way to kind of get involved and get going. So one thing I noticed about the brand that I really like, it might not be evident in the solid gray pullover that I wear a lot, but the designs, right? Yeah. The designs are fantastic. They're funny. They're irreverent. They're just unique in general, right? You don't see a lot of those like today. Mm-hmm. And I noticed some of the patterns they don't necessarily follow like a pattern like you would see on another polo, but, I'd like to just talk a little bit more about that. It's like, how does the brand, infuse innovation and the creativity into those designs to stand out in the market, right? Because you have other competitors who I'm sure we'll hear about later, but your guys' designs are so unique. It's like, where's that inspiration come from? How do you guys get down to that?
Yeah, so I'd say our designs come from a couple places. I think one of it is obviously just kind of Bill in the movies. Like that's a big place that we like to pull from. It's a lot of the different things, like he's had very unique characters over the years that, especially if we think about kind of as it launched, it was really a lot of focus on that. But then kind of as we've progressed, it's a lot of what we're doing is telling different stories from the family. So you'll see little elements from, it might be a childhood story that we hear, and then the team kind of really runs with that. I think there's also, for us, we design by the season. So I think it's keeping in mind, what do we think people are going to be doing with this? Yes, it's a golf apparel brand, so they're going to be wearing it on the course, but where else does this fit for going to a happy hour? Do they want to wear it to breakfast? Like in one of our recent seasons, we did something called Avo Over Easy, which was kind of a brunch-based print. It comes from a story from the family of kind of Bill knowing to show up with bringing like avocados, beers, and eggs for breakfast. And so kind of taking that and kind of bring it to life in kind of a different way, but also making sure that it's to the point like we like wild prints, but also not something that's going to be putting someone out of their comfort zone, kind of finding that balance between pushing the envelope and then also kind of not, if you will. And it's one of those things that in 2017, when we first started, there weren't a ton of people in the golf space putting out those prints. Like anything that was a bit more wild, it was a lot more tame. And now you're kind of seeing a lot of people in the space starting to do that. They're starting to go with louder prints. You're even seeing it from like the PGA side. You're seeing players on the course wearing bold prints, a lot bigger styles, patterns, things like that. And so for us, as it's changed, it's really just kind of focusing on those different stories that we have to tell, because that's one of the things that we really enjoy, because beyond just being like, oh, it looks cool, there's also a story behind it. And so the Murrays at their core are storytellers. So we try to relay that in the prints as well.
That's cool. You guys, you almost get, by virtue of working on this brand, you almost get like a really somewhat intimate look into kind of like their family and kind of all the stories and backgrounds they have. That's something that I didn't really know about, like the designs that you guys have. And everyone should go check out William Murray Golf, and just, I promise you'll find a design that fits your personality and you'll enjoy sporting. And kind of, off of that question and kind of what you're talking about with the designs and kind of, how you're presenting the brand in the broader market, there are a lot of competitors, right, in the golf apparel business. And, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what you're doing to beat their designs and kind of stand out. You alluded to it a little bit, but it would be great to hear kind of how you're positioning yourself against like the traditional apparel, and then maybe more like the Robacks. I have to imagine Robacks probably a competitor.
It's the Robacks of the world, the Bad Birdies. I mean, it's Travis Matthews. If you're selling golf apparel, you're a competitor in some way or the other. I think we like to think about it in one way of like, yes, they're competitors, but also we know that people are going to wear more than one clothing. They're not sponsored athletes by us. So it's one of those things that it's just trying to find ways that we fit in the marketplace. I think we like to focus on the design, the stretch, the feel, we feel confident that our product's going to last. And so like, that's really like what we focus on, is like the technology. I don't want to say you put on the blinders, but you kind of, we're focusing on like what we're working on. Our team is working like seasons ahead. So it's one of those things that you keep in mind what's happening in the marketplace. You see what other people are doing, but I think for us, we know what we do best. And so that's what we're really focusing on and doubling down. And of course, we're focusing on polos, which is our bread and butter, but expanding into other fabric types, things like that, to kind of, that's where kind of we think about innovation. If we look about like the marketplace, certain things that we released in this past year is like our PK line. So PK for us is a different fabric type, but also it's still kind of bringing you that still stretch, that lasting, but also doing things that resonate with different demographics. So we've done things where kind of a collarless polo, things like that. So something that talks to slightly younger demographic. You'll see that on some of our newer lines, we're color blocking the collars, things like that. So it's just finding ways to, it's more or less, it's marketing. You're breaking through the clutter of everything else going on. So it's vibrant prints, it's vibrant colors, it's things like that that just kind of help us stand out from a lot of different competitors. We do have it. It's not to say we don't, but we don't really rely on smaller repeating patterns. We like to do larger things like that. Hidden details is a really big thing for us. And so it's, a lot of times you'll see a polo and someone's like, that's really cool. And then you'll show it to someone else and they're like, oh my God, is that this one from like an obscure line from a movie? And so it's all those things. It's about finding those little hidden details, if you will.
The Easter eggs.
Exactly. The Easter eggs and all of that. And I would say when we think about from like a marketing lens, it's really just kind of staying ahead of the trends. And we're lucky enough that we launched as an e-com first company. So it's about being nimble in the market and kind of testing and trying new things and not getting stuck in our ways, if you will. Like, it's worked so far and that's great, but now how do we bolt on top of that, add in, how do we reach new customers, things like that. So it's that's kind of for us how we're looking at it. That's great.
And one thing I really like about this, I don't know if the camera can see it, is there's like a little product design, I guess, intention that's just this little hole in the armpit. It's great. It's great for aeration when you're out on the course and you're wearing it.
Yeah, that's one of the things, like in our long sleeve polo, of course not wearing one, but we have holes, so it's a little more breathable. So
that was the word I was looking for, breathable. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Just trying to find that match between like design, innovation, but also not making it look weird. It's hiding it in little areas where you can, so it's not blatantly obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the products are great. We love them. You guys do the long sleeve polos, short sleeve polos, pullovers, quarter zips, those type of things. What's on the horizon in terms of products, if you can share that? Do you guys think you'll do hats maybe down the line?
Yeah,
or do you do them now?
We do have hats. I think as we look at next year, there's definitely, we have some exciting new kind of hats coming out for people who follow the brand. We have some new bucket hats coming out. Those are always a big thing for us. We're also working on some kind of more golf gadgets, things like that. But I would say design-wise, this upcoming season, there's some really, really fun and exciting things coming out. It should be releasing in early February. Will be when our spring line launches, and there's some, definitely if you're a movie fan of some of Bill's stuff, there's definitely there's some ones in there that should probably surprise you. Yeah. Obviously, there's, looking to push the envelope where we can from a design standpoint. But yeah, there's definitely, I would say from like an overarching kind of new product, PK was like our newest one. And so there'll be some additional kind of things coming in that line. But also expanding, because what you're wearing right now, you were talking about the pullovers, a chip shot. One thing that we are starting to get into is some designs on those as well. So traditionally, we've kept those more of kind of your solids to kind of complement the wilder printed t-shirts. And so now we're looking to add some of that to it. We did one last year. I think it was called Go For All Over.
Like Groundhog Day or Caddyshack.
Caddyshack, exactly. Yeah, so kind of the combination between the two. And so looking to see where we can kind of continue that. People really seem to enjoy that. So kind of looking to continue to expand that line in that way.
Awesome. Well, that's really cool. I wanted to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about the brand and kind of how you guys are positioning yourselves, but also you having, a pretty rich history in customer experience and checkouts and things like that. What are you doing with, William Murray's, I guess, experience overall from start to purchase, right?
Yep.
That you think's a little bit different, or is that helping, the brand overall to drive sales?
Yeah, so I'd say the first thing, and I think a big focus for us, and I think most people in the space, is we're really looking to start making the shift to be a lot more video forward. I think that's something for us where I knew this when I was working there from an agency standpoint, and when coming on board, really just trying to bring us more video content. I think the way like I mentioned, we launched as more of an e-commerce brand, so more of a D2C online. So it's been a lot of your traditional Google ads, Facebook ads, things like that. But if you look at 2017 to now, the landscape has changed vastly from all of the things from like a technical, like the GDPR, what you can target, all of that. And so but also just the way people interact with the platform is just completely different. If you look at 2017, stories wasn't a thing. It was people posting. So it's really about, for us, kind of staying in tune with how people are using the platforms and how you can reach them in a way that it's you don't want to be intrusive, and you want to make sure you're reaching them in those moments and not letting someone slip through the crack, because life's busy. You're inundated with a million ads, things like that. So for us, it's really trying to put a bit more of a focus on that video first content, because again, we talk about the little details, things like that. It's easy to write. It's sometimes harder to see in like a singular photo. So that's why video for us has been a little better at being able to capture that. And I think we think about just that top of the funnel side of things, like influencers for us is something we're looking to lean into a bit more, because again, people have found people that they trust, they value their opinions on. And so working with them, and a lot of times it's a different demographic than kind of our core consumer. And so for us, it's always balancing that line of, all right, where are our current consumers spending their time, but also where are our future consumers and how we get in front of them and start thinking about it. It's our polos kind of at the price point. It's typically around kind of the 25, 26 mark is where we really start seeing people interact with the brand. How do we get ahead of them before they hit that point so they're familiar with us? And so that's for us kind of where we think about that top of the funnel sort of approach, is really kind of focusing on those channels. I think as we look forward, it's connected TV is something that we're really exploring into further. I think it's things like TikTok from like an organic and kind of also a paid ad standpoint, really starting to see that take off and starting to really see engagements there. People are spending more time on those platforms. So that's where we want to spend our time as well. And so just trying to stay nimble from that regard. And we think about kind of continuing moving through the funnel. I think for us, website is a big thing for us. We've been spending a lot of time on our site speed, things like that, from just a user experience. The internet is getting faster. Phones are getting faster. Again, if you compare 2017 to now, 3G in 2017 was great. And now nobody's on 3G anymore. So you need to make sure that your mobile experience, really putting a focus on our mobile experience, on our website, on our emails, all of that, just to make sure that we know that's where a lot of our traffic's coming from. That's where they're spending their time. So making sure that it's even simple things as like, is our website banner too small on mobile? So we should make that larger, and looking to kind of run simple tests here and there. It's how do we think about, if you're someone who's never seen the brand, what do we want that first interaction to be? If we think about like from a Facebook marketing standpoint, it's dynamic ads. So it's a lot of just driving people straight to product pages. But do we want to think about, it's one thing we're working on right now, is building out little micro landing pages. So that way we can tell those stories. So we talk about like the hidden details, things like that. So it's trying to find ways to kind of balance it throughout. And then for us, email marketing is one of our email, and also SMS has really started to pick up for us as well. SMS has been a really big thing for us this past year. It's again, where are people spending their time, how they want to be interacted. I think it's also, you think about the clutter of your email. I know, especially if you look in November, I felt like every time I loaded my inbox, it was like 100 new emails. And so it's obviously it's getting a little harder to stay on top of mind of people's inboxes, things like that. And so SMS has created kind of a uniquer opportunity where it's people are a lot more receptive to messages. But it's what's that balancing act of, you don't want to just be promotional. You want to make sure you're providing value to people in both email and SMS. So that's for us kind of as we're like looking at kind of expanding the funnel, things like that. I'd say that's hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, no, it above and beyond. That was a really good look into kind of how you guys approach the funnel and converting customers, which is great from a technical perspective. This is a podcast about marketing and partnerships. Right. So, but speaking of partnerships, you talked about influencers, how you think, I think that could be, especially for a lifestyle brand and apparel, that could be perfect. Are there other partnerships you're thinking about more broadly, maybe, down the line, that you think could be high level strategic, or is it mainly going to stay into the influencer realm?
I think for now, at least for this next probably like 6 to 8 months, we're probably going to focus more so on that influencer. And honestly, it's more so, I would say, in kind of almost like the micro influencer realm. We're not going after like the biggest name. It's really looking at people who have kind of that following, who also resonate with our product and have a good like fit to feel from that. So I would say that's something we're looking at. I think obviously when you think about longer term partnerships and it being the golf apparel space, there's always like pros, things like that. It's for us, I think the main thing that we're really looking at is kind of everything that's happened in the past year with golf between PGA and LIV and kind of coming together. All of that has really changed the landscape for us. And there's definitely some questions on exactly what does that look like moving forward. And so while that's kind of being sorted outside of that, we're going to kind of focus in on us and what we can control in the short term, because it's not a one or the other sort of thing. It's a when. I think is really kind of the when does it make sense for us to focus on it from that way? Because if we think about larger influencers and programs, things like that, it's going to bring a different level of kind of brand recognition. And so when we think about as a smaller company and kind of really focusing on dollars in, dollars out, what's right now for us going to drive that ROI as we kind of look to grow? And does it make sense for us right now to work with a partner, or is it a flagship store? It's those sort of the questions that we're looking in and kind of wrestling with as a brand. I'm just trying to figure out for us what makes sense now compared to 6 months from now, a year from now. And I think that's kind of where we're sitting with
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, the big name influencer types, almost borderline celebrity status, right? Yeah. Big price point to get a promotion live with them. Not knocking their business, they charge what they charge. They're worth it. ROI isn't that great.
Yep.
Most of the time. In the big influencers, I was going to agree with you. I think the micro influencers to mid-size influencers can yield a lot of value, especially for a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that especially if you can resonate with them. Again, to your point, like we have a lot of prints we have loud prints, we have more subtle prints. We have things that'll speak to someone who likes skiing, who likes playing football, who likes all of these different things beyond just what is golf, like ball golf in nature. And so I think that for us is that fun line of that you can find that crossover into people who, at the end of the day, it's a polo. Like you can wear it to work, you can wear it to the bar, you can wear it wherever. And I think that's been interesting as we work on like customer survey data, things like that, understanding where people are using it. And it's like, you have people who are like, I only wear it to the golf course, but more and more I'm wearing it to work, it's happy hours, it's all of that. So for us, it's performance is great on the course, but also want to make sure it feels good outside of it, not itchy. It's things like no tags, all of that sort of stuff that just kind of
I love the no tags.
Helps go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that another question about that is you have like a playful brand, right? You're in the market to have fun, and you also talked about the utility of it. It can be worn in many different places. The image is probably this is a fun, playful, funny brand that has a lot of golf, awesome golf apparel. How do you maintain that kind of brand, positioning while also trying to tap into the crowd that maybe is looking for the more professional, traditional, we'll call it, designs? Is it all in the design process, or do you guys segment it out in a different way?
I think it's both. I think obviously the design process, you kind of, as we're going through it, you have kind of an ideal person in mind who's going to resonate with this print. And from there, it's also, once you then get into market, I think that's where we go back to video first. It's at our core, we're a golf apparel brand. So golf is always going to be kind of at the front and center, but it's, again, as we think about who are those micro influencers, things like that, there might be someone in the cooking space. It might be something there who can just wear our clothing because it feels good and all of that. And so I think for us, it's always golf at its core, but I think it's from the messaging and kind of imagery standpoint. If we look at like this past year and we had our summer shoot, we actually didn't film it on a golf course. We did it like our in studio, and then we did kind of out in a marina and kind of out around town, things like that. Because again, it's also the prints themselves were a bit more like nautical in nature, but again, it's kind of pulling that all together and kind of showcasing people like, hey, us as we're Willie Murray Golf. It's literally in the name, but it's one of those things that you can wear it anywhere. And so for us, it's showing imagery in that way and just kind of continuing to highlight it. And I think as we kind of look into next year, one thing that from an email standpoint that I'm really looking to do is also add some stuff that's a bit more travel. It's a bit more travel based around like places you can go. And obviously it's around golf courses, things like that. But again, when we think about marketing as a whole, it's the analogy I've always heard and used is like, think about it as a cookie jar. And obviously you're asking for people, so you're taking out, but you want to make sure you're putting in from time to time as well. So again, so people don't just kind of fizz you out and just see it's like, oh, it's another sale email, something like that. So it's really about kind of striking that balance between providing them content and also selling what you need to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And that might be, a good time to ask, something that I ask of a lot of our guests when they come on is, obviously you have a big background in marketing. Mm-hmm. You're running, you're a marketing director at one of the greatest golf brands to ever exist. It would be great to hear, from somebody like you, mm-hmm. if you have any advice or tips for somebody who, might love golf, might want to, start selling their own designs or something like that, or have aspirations to be a marketing director at an apparel brand. If you have some tips for anyone in the audience who might be headed down that road, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so I guess I'll probably answer this question two different ways.
Sure.
One for the entrepreneur and then one for the person who wants to be marketing.
Perfect.
So I'd say for the entrepreneur, I think the main thing I would really tell you to focus on is really focus on your product. Like people, really think about that first brand experience, what that's going to be like, because I've read statistics on it, but it's one of those things where if that first negative brand experience can leave a bad taste in someone's mouth. So it's one of those things that I know you see a lot of brands who, like, I would encourage you to do smaller drops to begin, do things like that and really kind of build the buzz around it and then go a little larger, but make sure that you can create, if you do say if you're doing a hat and you do 100 hat drop, make sure that first experience is great for that user so that the way they come back. And a lot of it in the beginning is going to be word of mouth. There's obviously there's a ton of playbooks out there on how to grow a company from Facebook ads and all those different ways of doing it. But I think it's really understanding who you're trying to sell to. And also it's do something that you're passionate about. Don't just be like, oh, I think this is the way to make money. Like people will see through that. It's really make sure that you're passionate about the product, what you're selling and what you're looking to do. And I think that'll help a lot. And obviously you need to do good imagery, all of that, and make sure you're talking about your product in the right way. Again, supply chains, all of those more technical details, kind of dial it in. But I would say just really make sure you're passionate about it, and also don't be afraid to stand on who you want to be in the space.
Okay.
If you have an idea that's going to push the envelope, do it. But commit to it, I think is really the biggest thing that I would recommend. And also it's not going to happen instantaneously overnight. Like it's going to take time to build and grow, and
does it ever.
Don't give up is also, I'd say, a big piece of advice on the entrepreneur out there who's looking to grow. The flip side of it, on a marketer, I would say the biggest thing is, so I'd say I entered marketing in a really interesting time point. Like I was getting ready to graduate college, all of that right around 2013, which is right when Facebook ads and all of that really started to pick up. So I kind of entered into a field that was kind of growing at the time. And I would say the biggest thing for marketing is stay nimble. Really don't get stuck in your ways. Just because something worked even last month, and the way digital marketing changes, even if something worked last month doesn't mean it's always going to continue to work. But I think the biggest thing is make sure to take your time to spend time with the data. I feel like we live in, especially a marketing world, where there's so much data on so many different touch points, and it can be a bit overwhelming, especially in the beginning, but really understand kind of what your core KPIs are, figure out your secondary KPIs and what tie into that, and then you can learn a lot from data. It's one of those things that when I was at an agency, I think that what I always used to say is, at the end of the day, everyone has access to the exact same tools, but it's really about how can you manipulate your data better than others is really how you can win. And so I would say that's the biggest thing. I would say for a young marketer, spend time learning Google Analytics. Spend your time going through the different blueprint programs. Some of it might feel rudimentary and kind of you already understand it, but take the time to learn it because it's going to continue to grow and change, and they continue to bolt on new things. And it's a lot easier to learn one new thing every few months than it is to learn everything at a single time. But also find something you're passionate in, and again, just continue to focus on it.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You mentioned, kind of lastly here to wrap things up, you mentioned, digital marketing is ever changing.
Yeah.
Are there emerging trends that, outside of what we already talked to with TikTok videos and things like that, are there emerging trends you've identified in the market that you're like, we got to take advantage of this?
I mean, TikTok right now is probably the biggest. Yeah, it is probably the biggest. That's one that we've been working on trying to get up and running and make sure also for us. And again, it's when we think about those, making sure that we're not just half-ass doing it. We're making sure we're putting our best foot forward. And if you're going to test it, truly do a test on it. And even if it takes you a little longer to get up, that's fine. I would say that's definitely one that's emerging. I would say, I know I keep going back to video content, but
no, it's fine.
Video is king. And so I'd say that's something for us. It's trying to figure out how do we inject that? How can we do kind of things outside of our larger photo shoots, stuff like that. And I would say the other last trend is UGC. That's a really big thing. User-generated content. I realize I use acronyms for everything.
No, you're good. You're good.
I feel like most people understand, but
I hope so.
I think it's just one of those things that UGC, again, as a brand, I can say this is the best polo. It's great for these reasons. It's moisture wicking. It's stretching. It's all of these things. But you're going to look at it as like, that's what you want me to know about the product. And so that's where like that UGC, getting those customer reviews, things like that, especially if you tying it really back to marketing from like a remarketing standpoint, adding that stuff into it, it's the social proofing. It's all of those different ways. And especially if you have good reviews, things like that, obviously makes it a lot easier. And so that's one thing for us, like really, I think those are probably the two key trends. It's obviously like the TikTok, what's going on, but I think it's also what is that next, the next platform, which is crazy to say as it's TikTok's just starting to hit its stretch, but it's, true. I mean, again, that's how be comfortable being an early adapter on things, because it only gets more saturated with time, and it gets more expensive, it gets more saturated. So
I know. I find myself thinking like, oh man, we have Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok nowadays. Like, what else is there to come next? But there always will be something.
There always will be. I mean, because if you think about it, there's platforms that came and went. There's the Vines of the world. There's all of those different things. And I think as a marketer, and I'll be honest with it, I was a bit slower on TikTok. I was at that point. Also, it's right around the pandemic, so everything was a little weird. But it was one of those things where
don't beat yourself up.
You kind of question like, okay, this is cool. People are using it, but at one point, it was their core demographic was under 20, and so it's like from a marketing standpoint, yes, that's a robust pool of potential buyers in the future, but at this point, where our customers lay and the overlap isn't quite there. Obviously, you've seen TikTok grow. It's gotten a lot, I'll say an older demographic, which feels strange, but it's like older than 20. They've started adding people, but people are spending their time, but you continue to see platforms like that. They've added shops. They've added different ways of buying. So it's just kind of that maturation of that platform. And now it's like, all right, let's spend some time on it and see where that goes. So I would say that's for kind of like, as we look at the first part of the year, I'd say that's kind of the couple big things. And then connected TV as well.
Absolutely.
With that, I think that's another big one. So outside of like your YouTube, things like that, really kind of finding those different partners out there who can really kind of help from that lens is also a big one. Because again, as there are smart devices, as people are going away from traditional TV to streaming, that's where you get the opportunity to get in front of those people in ways that smaller companies before couldn't afford. So that's where it gets exciting as you kind of grow. Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, there's just ample opportunity. Opportunities abound to market your product on all these different platforms. If you can figure it out, you've got the golden ticket. I lied. I have one last question.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody in the audience wants to get in touch with you, wants to contact you, maybe, connect with you about marketing or something like that. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say, I guess email is probably the best way, which is johnny.ferrentino@williammarygolf.com. Also, I'm pretty much on every platform, just Jonny Ferrentino. I don't do any clever names with anything. So
perfect.
Twitter, Instagram, whatever, reach out to me there. LinkedIn, all of them are just Jonny Ferrentino. So I keep it simple.
Easy enough. Hey, man, I like it. Keep it simple, All right, there you have it, folks. We had a wonderful interview here with Jonny. Thank you so much again for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. And thank you all for tuning in. Again, this is Sell Yeah. This is the podcast segment with 8Fig that features interviews with a wide array of our valued partners and sometimes seller customers to talk about what they're doing to bring value to the e-commerce space and make for a better ecosystem for us all. If you'd like to learn more about the sort of partners and service providers that 8Fig works with, you can reach out to me at howdy@8fig.com, or you can visit the website 8fig.co. Excuse me. Thank you, Katie. 8fig.co. And you can find more info there. So thank you again for joining.